Welcome back to inventRightTV. This is Stephen Key. Hey, you know I love licensing ideas to companies, but some of you want to venture your own product. So if you do, you need to watch this video. Oh, okay. We're back after the holidays. Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. How you doing, Steven?
Well, now that we got everything squared away, I'm doing great, and I'm really glad this is one of our first interviews for 2025. Can you believe it? Oh.
I can't believe it. I love to be the first one. This is great.
Well, you're going to kick it off for us. Okay, Matt, tell us a little bit about you. Where do you live? If you have a day job, because we're going to dive into kind of you launching products. But before we get there, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, for sure. So my old day job that I used to have was I was active duty in the military. I was actually in the Air Force, and I served over 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
All over the world. Lived in Italy for 3 years, moved around quite a bit, deployed quite a bit, and then I retired several years ago, and I started bringing products to life. Just concepts that I had in my mind. I would just look at things and think of there's got to be a better way to do something, and that's kind of got me into the product development. And instead of licensing, which I've done, I love to bring them to market and build a brand behind them. So I like the entrepreneurial part and business running behind it.
Okay, great. We're going to dive into that. Well, wait a minute. You're in the military for all those years, and you just get out and you're like, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to start my own company and launch products. How does that kind of fit together? One's very structured, and one is like, hey.
You got it. Yeah, it's well, I gave you a brevity version of my story because there's actually a product I did launch while I was in the military, and it's an outdoor game. And
Okay.
it's called Rollers. It's a cross between bocce ball, bowling, and horseshoes. And part of that came to me is because of the time I spent in Italy. Played
All
a
right.
lot of bocce ball, went to a lot of wineries, had
Influenced.
a lot of fun. And I just rolled in a bunch of elements of outdoor games that I really enjoyed. So it's just a fusion of a bunch of different fun aspects of games. I took some things out that I didn't like about yard games, which were maybe too big, overweight, like a cornhole board or bag toss, bocce ball. The sets can be 30, 40 pounds. I wanted to go with something lightweight, so I made the material out of wood. So that was my first product that I did while I was in the military. And we've sold about 150,000 units over about 10 years. So we've got a few of them out there that people are playing. So
Well,
that was my first product out. Yeah.
well, that's pretty. 150,000 units. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a good number, and you were able to do that while you were in the military. I love that. I didn't know they let you do stuff like that. Kind of like I got a side gig. Here's my job, and I've got the side gig. We've known each other for quite a while. When was the first time that we spoke?
We spoke about 10 years ago, and I think you were driving, was it to Montana or something? But I know we spoke on the phone for a little bit about rollers.
I remember now. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
That was, but I've always remembered that conversation, and we talked a little bit about the information contained in your books about licensing, which were real important because I actually utilized the template and the foundation for creating a licensing agreement. And without of reading those books, I really had no other foundation on gotchas and catches and the benefits of having that. So that was really important. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. But you didn't take my advice. You went to venture.
I did. I know you love the license, but it's all about the person, right? You like the license, and I like the entrepreneurship aspect of it. I love to run the business
I
of
can
it,
tell.
and I get excited about it. Yeah, you can tell. Everything's related to sporting goods. I like outdoors, the social aspect of it, all of those things. Now, let's say I came up with something and I didn't have interest in it, but I thought it was a great product, that would be something I'd probably license, because you have to love the product too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can tell just by this conversation that you do love the product. And for a lot of people, if you do and you want to stay involved in it, yes, you should venture. There's no question about it.
Right.
You have to make good decisions and you're going to love it along the way. If you don't completely love it,
Yeah.
yeah, you might want to hand it off to someone else that might. Yeah.
Agree.
InventRight co-founder Andrew Krause here. This break will only take a second. Consider joining our Become a Professional Inventor program. It is only $349 a month. We'll make sure everything is done right on your project. You have great marketing materials. You're getting into top companies. Not only that, we'll guarantee that you can get into companies. And our negotiation coach will provide unlimited negotiation support during your membership with us. So if you'd like to close that lucrative licensing deal at only $349 a month, please book a call with us. Go to inventright.com and book a call. Now back to the show.
Okay, you've got a product now that I kind of understand because this rotating thing has been in my world for a long time.
I know it has, yeah.
And I've seen a lot of rotating devices for 25 plus years. So when I saw it, I just loved it. So let's talk about your product, how you came up with it, and what does it do? What is it?
So I'll talk to you about the transition between the rollers outdoor game and transitioning to my latest product, which is called Tally Tumblr. So because I had an outdoor game, I thought I need to have a product to help keep track of score of yard games. And so the original concept is a lot of people that are playing games may have a drink in hand, but they also need a scorekeeper.
Okay.
So what I originally created was a tumbler
All right.
with rings that rotate around it to help you keep track of your score. And the one I'm holding right now is for golf. And this is my original one that I launched on Kickstarter, because I've never launched on Kickstarter before. So this is the first one, and I needed some money for tooling and molds and minimum order quantity.
Okay. Well, okay, wait. All right, stop there. Stop there.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got this great idea about keeping score. It looks like you love the golf. I see your shirt. Okay, you're a golfer. I can tell you're probably a golfer.
Yeah.
And you decide, hey, I'm going to do a Kickstarter to raise some money. What do you know about Kickstarter? And what do you know about that process? And was it hard? And did you raise enough money?
Yeah, so it was, I thought, you hear a lot of success stories with people on Kickstarter, and they raised $250,000, $1 million. And so I did a lot of research, a lot through podcast, reading books, articles, everything I could find online. It's a challenge. You have to have a really good video.
Okay.
You have to have a lot of backing of advertising. So whatever platform you're looking to advertise on or search engine. And that's a challenge going into it, because I spent a lot of money for the Kickstarter, but I'm trying to raise money at the same time. And so, to be honest, I was successful in the amount that I wanted to raise, which is only $10,000, and got maybe $11,000 for it, which was enough to move forward. There's different tactics that I've seen people talk about with Kickstarter. One is I'll have a really low funding amount, call it $1,000 or $2,000, and then they get to it right away and they get it fully funded. So then people look at it as a success, and then they might advertise it got funded within an hour or within a day. Or you could have the actual amount that I needed. So for example, the tooling and molds that I needed for this was actually a lot more than $10,000. But I didn't want to make the Kickstarter campaign minimum too high. So there's a kind of a fine balance between it. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It really depends on how much you need and what your product is.
How'd you know what the mold costs? How did you figure that out? Did you go overseas or something, or did you do it here in the United States?
So because I've been working overseas with rollers for a long time, I was quite familiar with overseas manufacturing, contracts, agreements, things like that. And so I worked with some past manufacturers that I've worked with. Now, here's an interesting statistic. I will show you in a second here the latest version of the Tally Tumbler I have.
All right.
And it's all stainless steel. But do you know what percentage of tumblers, stainless steel tumblers, are made in the United States?
A lot? Zero?
0%. They're all manufactured overseas. 95% of them are in China. So when you have a product and you run into that situation, you really have no options from a manufacturing standpoint. I mean, it would be incredible and awesome to have it manufactured in the U.S. because imagine the tariff perspective, the logistics, the timing, all of that. So, but to go back to your original question, is I started sending the concept and the ideas out, and that's how I got the mold cost. And so I worked with several people and said, I feel comfortable with this mold cost.
Matt, were you comfortable working with those guys? Did you have them sign some type of document, an NDA? How did you know to trust them?
A few different things. One, I've worked with them in the past.
Okay.
Two is I did do a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA.
Right.
I also had a contract for my molds that I had ownership over them. And so whatever I wanted to do with them, if I wanted them sent somewhere else or destroyed or anything, that was all in the agreement. So a lot of it, as you probably know, Stephen, is when they go into contracts is the exit strategy. You know, you have an agreement, but what if things don't work out well for you and you need to execute that? So a lot of my documents are how are we going to get rid of our agreement?
If things go wrong. I hate to say it, but if things go wrong.
You've got it.
Okay. All right. So, but you have this concept, but do you need CAD drawings? I mean, how do you do all that? I mean, do you hire someone to do the drawings, the CAD drawings, the prototyping, get it to the manufacturer? We're missing a couple steps here. Could you?
Yeah, we are. We're bouncing around here, which is great. But you're right. You need some visualization for people to see, right? And you need to be able to explain it. And so a CAD diagram is very helpful. Also, any type of visual aspects to it. For example, so people understand, we have rotating rings and having an understanding of that, especially as if you're working overseas in China, you know, maybe they don't understand what golf is or yard games. So you have to explain the scoring aspect of it, double checking things like the verbiage that you have on there. So that's important.
Good communication. Okay. All right, so you've got the molds done. They're producing samples. How expensive? Is there a minimum? Everybody always asks, okay, do I have to order 1,000, 2,000, and what is that going to take? And how much money do I need to do that?
Well, the nice thing about people that are working with molds is the cost has gone down from 5 years to 10 years ago. I think things are more cost effective when it comes to molds and tooling. And when I say molds, that's like an injection mold where you're taking plastic pellets and you're injecting it into a mold. And then you have tooling, which are extra items to create the product. And let me show you an example here. So this is the latest one that we have. And this is all stainless steel.
Nice.
And so it's a tumbler, but inside are grooves where the rings go. So the tooling is for making these grooves into the tumbler. And there is no mold needed because it's all stainless steel. Let me show you the other one here. This one, which you might not be able to tell, this has actually a plastic sleeve that goes over a tumbler. So that's where the mold was required.
Okay.
And so I just wanted people to just see the difference between that so they have an understanding when I say molds and tooling.
Nice. All right, so you've got this product. It looks great. How many do you order the first time out? Do you order 1,000, 2,000?
So it's going to be a little dependent on the manufacturer you're working with. But 1,000 is pretty normal. My initial order was 3,000. And the reason why is the Tally Tumblr, we had 3 iterations of it. We had one for tennis, one for yard game, one for golf, 1,000 of each. So
that costs a little bit of money here. So how do you write that check? Do you just have that in your in your bank account, or do you raise money for that? That'd be a fairly large amount, 3,000.
It is. So in my case, I always bootstrap my businesses, meaning
Okay.
I'm always buying what I need and not what I want, and I try to
Oh,
find things as most
okay.
cost effectively as I can. Now, because I've worked with some of the manufacturers, we've come up with payment structures and plans.
Okay.
So for anyone that wants to work overseas in manufacturing, I don't give and make all the payment at once. I
Got
do
it.
an incremental payment plan,
Okay.
and that helps out and reduces risk in my opinion.
Let you handle the float game a little. There's a float game getting here.
You
We'll
got
talk
it.
about that in just a minute too.
Yeah.
All right. So you've got inventory. Where are you storing it? Is it in your back bedroom or in the garage, or where are you putting all those tumblers?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. I'll give kind of a funny one. When I started rollers, I had them in the living room and the garage. I moved out the cars, and that's where they were. Now, things have increased and changed over time where I now have warehousing. So
Okay.
the nice thing about these tumblers is it's not like working with a food. So they can collect dust on the shelf if required. They don't, so that's
They don't
nice thing about-
stack though. They don't stack, do they? Do they come that way, or are they boxed individually when they come to you?
Boxed individually. I'll show you a quick one here.
Let's see.
So these are
very
the
nice.
boxes that we have, and then those individual ones go into what's called a master carton or a carton, and there's 24 units in a carton, and then that's how they're stacked. And so they
nice.
come in a big, huge 40-foot container, and they're just
Okay.
stacked from the ground all the way up.
Wow. Let's see that box again. Could you show that? It looks pretty good. That's nice. You know what I like about it? Today, when you receive something from Amazon, there's no graphics on the box. It's kind of like they've just thrown that out the door. I don't know, but that's done very well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so how do you sell it now? You've got inventory. You've got 3 different SKUs, right?
Yep, right.
Okay. So how do you sell it? I mean, how do you market it? Are you good at that?
So that's part of the enjoyment I get about with running a business is I like the marketing and psychological aspect of showing the product itself, the benefits. And so digital marketing's one way. Just knowing your demographics is a really key, important part if I'm going to spend any type of advertising. Now, for your listeners, I want to go back and talk about something. So when I started the 3 tumblers here, and we had a tennis, the yard game, and the golf. The tennis one, I found out, it's a very big industry, very big demographics, but the sales weren't that good. They were not good whatsoever. We're actually going to discontinue that product because I'm always looking at the analytics and the sales, and I just did not see the numbers to keep that product alive. And I think that has to do with the interaction of the product itself and the customer. And people playing golf weren't interacting a lot with the product as they played tennis. But for golf, they do, because they hit the golf ball, they sit in the golf cart, they take a drink. And so you also have to think through that as a product developer, that interaction between the product and the person and the individuals using it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now that makes perfect sense because I know we have a golf cart and there's a place to put your tumbler in there.
Right, yeah.
And every time you go to it, you're playing, you're always sitting there, and of course you probably like something to drink too. And it's a great way to keep score. So, well, that makes perfect sense. What's your 3rd SKU? You said.
So we actually have different. Because the golf has been very superior in the sales volume, we have different colors.
Oh.
And we've changed the theme to be playful in regards to the name. So, for example, this is divot green.
Okay.
So it's a theme on it. We've got a bogey blue, we've got a birdie black, we've got white tees. So there's a play on the name that goes along with it. So right now we're down to a yard game version, which has a couple colors, and then the golf version, which has done really well, and we're expanding our color themes.
So you're probably going to all the trade shows, yes? No?
Yeah, we've got one later in about a week, ASI, which is a promotional products in Orlando, and then the PGA Golf Show, which we got a United Inventors Association, gave us a discounted booth to showcase the golf Tally Tumblr there, which is really great.
Okay, very good. So you probably play a lot of golf yourself, I would say. Yes.
I
No?
do, but now that I'm running the businesses, I have a little less time, but I still love to play it.
I
Yeah,
was going to say, when you're playing, you're probably bringing a few of those with you, giving those out maybe at times. Okay, yeah, I
for
bet you
sure.
are. Is there any problems that you can think of that you could help somebody else if they're first starting out? That something that you might have, now that you've done it, you would recommend to somebody else just starting out?
Well, having a minimal viable product, for example, going back to the previous Tumblr that I showed you, is this wasn't what I wanted to be my final product. I wanted to move more towards this, which was all stainless steel, because it's laser engraved
Okay.
into it, and I can change the colors. This has a silk screen on it. Sometimes it can rub off in the heat. And where I'm going with this is, you should start on whatever product it is, developing a prototype.
Okay.
If it's a CNC, if it's a rapid prototype of some sort, if you're gluing and taping stuff together and you have to go to a retailer to cut out some cloth or clothing to make something, but it's important to just keep that iteration going along the way.
All right.
And I don't ever feel like the product is fully complete. I feel like
Never
there's
done.
always
Never done?
there's always something better. There's always something a little bit more I can change. I might be able to change the lid. I might change the packaging. There's just different things.
Are you a perfectionist?
I might be. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. What about protection? Are you worried about someone coming in and copying you, or what are you doing about that, Matt?
Intellectual property is a really important part. So I've read a couple of your books, love the books on my shelves, and about licensing and talking about intellectual property. It's always a question, should you, early on when you don't have a lot of money, you're going to invest into a utility patent, which is better, in my opinion, than a design patent. And then also a registered trademark is real important. So Tally Tumblr is a registered trademark in the United States.
Okay.
And then we have a design patent and a utility patent pending. And that's an important aspect because the Tumblr business is a crowded space. There's a lot out there. We've got Stanley we've seen in the market a lot. We've seen Yeti is everywhere. And there's a lot of that I'm not even mentioning that are out there. And so I want to give patent protection, or at least try to acquire it the best I can.
Okay. Can people how do people buy it? I want it. How do I get it? How do I buy it?
So you can go to tallytumblr.com.
All right.
And there's all sorts of other retailers. We've got Amazon and Target and Walmart and all those big players out there. But feel free to stop by the website, take a little look at the story about it, and you'll see new colors and new iterations of it out there. We're going to come up with a 20-ounce version of it, and we've got some other things in the hopper.
Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing your story. I love the product. I like things that spin, as you know. I do like it.
Yep.
And when I first saw it, I was like, clever. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Everybody, this is Stephen Key, inventRightTV. Thank you for checking this story out with Matt. I absolutely love it. Wow. Great story. Thank you, Matt, for sharing it with everybody.
Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate you having me on.